Thanks for joining us. I'm Jackie Simeon. On this edition of Southeast Texas Weekly, we're introducing the Creative Corrections Education Foundation. The mission is to provide scholarships to children with parents in prison. We welcome the founder, Percy Pitzer, to explain more about the foundation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Jackie, for inviting me.
And you have a long history in the criminal justice system, and this is what motivated you to start this foundation here. Tell us a little bit about your background in the criminal justice system.
Well, after the military, I spent 5.5 years in the military, and then I joined the Bureau of Prisons in 1973. And I worked in the Bureau of Prisons for 25 years, and I retired. Actually, I was the warden at the U.S. Penitentiary here in Beaumont when I retired in 1998. Then I went to work for private corrections for 4 years, and I was in Tennessee and California there. And then I decided, my wife and I decided we'd give that up and start our own business, which was Creative Corrections, which is an international police and corrections consulting company. And we did very good in my career, and we do very well in our business. And my wife and I decided that it was time to try to give something back. So we started Creative Corrections Education Foundation. And it's designed to provide scholarships for children of incarcerated parents, or if they're out on parole. Our desire is to try to keep kids out of prison. You know, in my nearly 30 years working in prisons, I've been in many, many visiting rooms with many kids in there, and you could almost go through and pick out who our next clients was going to be. And it was and it is a sad situation. So we're starting out trying to provide, now we are providing the scholarships for children of incarcerated parents. But we hope as we get developed more that we can do other things within the foundation with these kids.
So what are the qualifications, or what, how can children, besides having a parent who's incarcerated, what are the other qualifications, and how can their scholarships be used? What schools can they use
any
these
university or vocational training school. And we decided the both of them because not everybody wants to go to college.
Right.
And job skills is important. Actually, I was just at a meeting here today with a number of jobs that are being developed here in the Beaumont, Port Arthur area within the next year or so. And they were talking about not being able to get people with skills. So I think if we can get them either in a university or in a vocational training, there's jobs available for them.
Very good. And in all of your years with the correction system, there are some statistics here that people may find really hard to believe. 1 in 100 adults are in jail.
Exactly. It's interesting because
leaving 2.7 million young children with a parent behind bars.
Exactly right. The interesting part about that, in 1973, we had 200,000 prisoners nationwide in our country. Today, we have 2.3 million people incarcerated. In 1975, the Bureau of Prisons had 27,000 prisoners. Today, they're just short of 219,000 prisoners. We with those kind of statistics, we really need to look at what we're doing and how we're doing. I mean, we're the most advanced free country in the world, and we incarcerate people longer than any country does. We incarcerate people longer than any country, and it's affecting these kids because most of the people who go to prison have children.
Right.
And it's very likely and a good possibility that they'll follow in their father's footsteps. And, if we can keep one kid from going to prison, I think we've done our job. And I think we'll do better than that.
All right, well, we will be back with more from Percy Pitzer and the Creative Corrections Education Foundation. Stay with us. We're back with more Southeast Texas Weekly, and this week we're speaking with Percy Pitzer, the founder of the Creative Corrections Education Foundation, an organization with a mission to provide scholarships to children with parents who are in prison. Talk to us a little bit about how this foundation will be funded, where the funding is coming from for this.
Well, that's interesting because starting off the foundation, I put $100,000 of my own money in it to get it started.
Very commendable,
our
and shows
goal-
your belief in what you're doing.
Oh, I'm very committed in it. I mean, it is going to work. What I want to do is get inmates to contribute. And I think if we can get the word to the prisons that they know what we're doing, I think that they would be more than willing to contribute their own money. My thought is if inmates contributed a cost of a candy bar per month for 12 months, they could contribute $6 to $7 a year. And with inmates contributing $6 to $7 a year, we can give hundreds of scholarships. Now, every dime an inmate contributes is going to go towards scholarships. The operational fees is going to come either from myself or corporate contributions or private contributions. But it's going to be important to get the inmates involved. You know, people don't realize because a person is in prison doesn't mean they don't care about their children.
Right.
I mean, they still have that ties to the children. Now, there's some that don't, but I think that's a very small percentage. Most of them care about their kids.
And as you said, you have witnessed visitations that include children and other family members, so you see that they do still care.
I've lived with them for nearly 30 years. I mean, I've seen them contribute to so many things, and they feel good about it. And I think if they get an opportunity to contribute to their own kids or another inmate's kids' future, that they will get on board without a doubt.
Very good. And what will be the value of these scholarships?
Right now, they're anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 scholarships. And depending on how we proceed in the future, how the money comes in. What we do need, I think if we can get the inmates to participate in this, that we'll get the public to participate. Because the public has no idea about prisons. You know, they think that we lock these people up and we throw away the key. And what they don't realize is 98% of them are going to come back out into this community. And so if we can keep them attached to their children, and if we can keep their children in school without going to jail or prison, then that just strengthens the family tie.
What do you say to the person out there who says, you know, that's their problem, this is not my problem, you know, I pay enough taxes, you know, prisons already use up enough government money as is, why should I care about helping a prisoner's child attend college?
My response would be is government does spend too much money on prisons because we're locking too many people up for longer term sentences. And I think that's something that we have to look at. As far as it's not your responsibility, well, you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later. Because
good point.
When
one way or the other.
When these people get out of prison and we refuse to give them jobs or we refuse to let them be part of the community, guess what? They're going to do something to survive and end up back into prison.
And then there's the second generation with their children that you speak of.
And they will follow them. So it's a matter of paying now or paying later. The community, you know, as a warden, you know, I used to take tours through their prison. And inevitably they would ask me, what are you doing to reform these people? And my response would be, what do you expect me to do that the community didn't do? And I mean, they had nothing to say because people in general don't understand what's going on. I mean, we're taking people with the mandatory minimum sentencing and giving them these ungodly, lengthy sentences in the federal system. We've taken the authority away from the federal judges. The federal judges are pretty smart people, but with a minimum mandatory, I mean, their hands are tied. I mean, when a person gets convicted of a crime that's 10 to 12 years, that's what they give them. And we need to start looking at alternative sentencing instead of putting everybody in prison. Let me give you an example. You take a drug user or an addict who commits a crime to support his habit. We put him in jail for 10 years. Now figure it out. It costs you about $30,000 a year, and that may be a low figure. For 10 years, so that's $300,000 we spent on incarcerating that individual. Mm-hmm. What if we took a diversion program, put him into drug rehab for a year, let him out with the understanding that if you do it again, you're going to serve your sentence? I think we'd save a lot of money. And I think we'd save a lot of lives.
We'll continue the conversation after this short break. Stay with us. We're back with more Southeast Texas Weekly, and Percy Pitzer, founder of the Creative Corrections Education Foundation, an organization with the mission to provide scholarships to children with parents in prison. How will the scholarship recipients be selected? What's the selection process?
Well, first of all, they have to have a parent incarcerated or on parole or probation. Then they need to be accepted by a vocational training school or a university. We don't look at the grade point average because we figure if they're accepted, then that's good enough for us. And then they need to apply for a Pell Grant. And then the applications and all the information is on our website, which is creativecorrectionseducationfoundation.org. And the process is pretty fast. Like I said, we've just got started. We've only provided 2 scholarships so far, one from Oklahoma and one from Kansas, maybe.
And that's important to mention. We do have viewers in Louisiana, so this is open to anyone in the country.
Any place in the nation.
And are the scholarships renewable?
Yes. Yes, if they can reapply at the end of each year, and then their scholarship will then be considered.
And how is the scholarship money then distributed to the students?
To the financial aid office at the school.
Directly to them?
Directly to the school.
Very good. Well, let's talk a little bit about the board members of CCEF. You, of course, have already told us about your background in the criminal justice system. Tell us about the board members you're working with to make this happen.
Yeah, we have 2 other board members right now, and we plan on that growing as time goes on. But we have a gentleman from Beaumont here, Jim Rich, who's president of the Chamber of Commerce and also a retired warden.
Yes, he is. Yes.
And then we have a guy by the name of Jeff Whitehaven from Wisconsin who did 23 years in corrections in the Wisconsin system. So, and myself, of course, and that's what we have right now.
And what can the public do to get involved? Because as we've discussed already today, this is this should be a team effort of the entire community. This is everybody's concern.
Well, it is. I mean, we have to do something to keep these kids off the street and out of prison. And it's obviously we need funds. I'm funding everything right now, and we've had some contributions. Some people have been very generous with us, and some companies have been very generous with us. But we also need public support. And, you know, just in the area here, the prisons in the area is probably a $120 million business with the federal prisons, state prisons, and the county jail.
It's the big industry here. Locally and throughout the state, yes.
There's a lot of vendors here that service these areas, and we would hope that the vendors, like myself, who make their living off in prisons, would feel comfortable in contributing to help keep these kids out of prison.
And how many scholarships do you expect to award this year?
Within a 12-month period, we're going to award 40 scholarships.
It's a lot of help for children in this area. Do you find, you have just started, so what has been the demand or the response in this area to what you're doing?
I haven't had no response from the Beaumont-Port Arthur area, simply because I don't think people are aware of it. That's why this is so important here with you.
So what you've done so far has been outside of this area then?
Yeah. We're on Facebook and we're on LinkedIn. We're starting to get good responses from those. People, I think, really appreciate what we're doing from all the responses we're getting. I have not received any negative criticism, certainly not from the prison industry. Because, you know, I think my position on where we're going in the prisons is probably the same opinion most correctional professionals have. But, you know, the prisons follow the system. And if the system needs reforming, it's got to be more than the prisons that do it.
Right. I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of feedback you get after this program. It's been my experience, my husband works in the prison system. There's not a lot of sympathy out there for inmates, not the way I think there should be, perhaps.
Well, and I think it's because lack of understanding. You know, we have reentry programs in prison where they teach them certain things because upon release, they're better prepared to be released. But we're not getting corporations and companies involved in that release program to where, I mean, you know, as I mentioned, I was at a meeting today with all these jobs that are going to be available with no skilled help. I'm really curious why some of these companies don't go into prisons and set up training programs and hire these guys when they get out.
We need to take another break, and we'll continue the conversation after this. We have been introducing the Creative Corrections Education Foundation on this edition of Southeast Texas Weekly. We appreciate you joining us. We're here with Percy Pitzer, who has been telling us all about the program and how its mission is to provide scholarships to children with parents in prison. Is there any other organization or foundation out there doing what this organization is doing, that, to your knowledge?
I'm not aware of any. I mean, there is organizations out there that work with kids of prisoners, but I don't think anybody that I know of is providing scholarships and trying to get them in school.
What are some of your goals for the upcoming year?
Well, to generate enough income so we can provide 40 scholarships. I mean, that's the biggest goal, and we really need the help of the community and the corporations. On anybody wanting any information on our organization, it's creativecorrectionseducationfoundation.org.
And we also have a phone number here, 861-2536?
Correct.
Very good. Those are the short-term goals. What do you see on the long term for CCEF?
Well, I see a lot of things. I think we can go into other areas. I think maybe we could even, once we get to where we need to be, maybe send kids to camps. Maybe provide alternative schooling for them. I think there's a lot of things that we can do. When it gets to that point, then we're going to be visiting with the schools and identifying with them what the needs are. They know probably better than I know when they're at that age.
And how many children do you really think could be impacted by this? How many children do you think could potentially stay out of prison as a result of getting a scholarship to help them further their education?
I think the question's got to be, how many kids are going to go to prison if they don't get into school and learn a trade? You know, it's hard for me to say we're going to prevent so many kids from going to prison, but I think if we get them in school, then there's a very good likelihood that they're going to lead a straight life.
Right. Tell us those statistics again about second-generation crime here in the United States.
We have, I think right now the figure is about 1.7 million children of incarcerated parents. I think 50% of them, by statistics, that are in juvenile hall have a parent in prison. I think that they figure that 38% are going to end up probably encountering problems with the legal system, and it may even be higher than that. But I mean, it's an issue. I mean, when they don't have the direction, you know, kids, when they're at a younger age, they have no idea, for the most part, what they're capable of accomplishing. They see their parents in prison, and they just don't understand that there's another road for them.
Right.
They can't vision themselves being successful in a career.
For a lot of them, this is just life. This is the way it goes.
Yeah, and that's got to change. And that's why, you know, you had mentioned earlier that the public has no sympathy for these guys that are in prison. But we got to remember, these people are going to come out of prison. And as I said before, you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later. So let's help them when they get out. Let's try to train them while they're in. Let's try to help them find a job when they're released. And I think that will make a big difference. Let's stop giving them 10 years when a 5-year sentence could be just as effective. Let's start looking at alternatives to incarceration. Let's look at whether or not this mandatory minimum sentences is effective, because I personally don't think it is. I think if you lock a person up for 10, 15 years on something that he could have probably got 5 years or maybe a diversion into a drug program, then you have to ask yourself, how is this person going to be when he gets out? I mean, he's lost 10 or 15 years. They're going to do 85% in the federal system.
Right.
How is he going to do when he gets out? I mean, the world has changed in 10, 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what's your expectations? Is he going to stay out? Or is he going to rob your house and go back to prison? So I think if we put a little effort into the prison system, I mean, right now the prison system is what, $65, $70 billion a year industry? And seems to me like we could use a few billion of those dollars keeping people out.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time. So here's the phone number again that you can call for more information on the program, 861-2536. And the website, again, you're also on the web, creativecorrectionsfoundation.org. creativecorrectionseducationfoundation.org. And this address also works. I tried it myself earlier, so creativecorrections.com also works. We hope that students will take advantage of this and that the community will support what you're doing.
I think they will when they have an understanding.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate the
opportunity. We'll have to have you back on to talk about it some more as you go along with the program.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
And thank you. This has been Southeast Texas Weekly. Have a great day.